The gentle chime of the Lumina morning cycle was not a sound that startled, but rather a whisper that coaxed the world awake. It began as a low thrum beneath the polished ceramite floor, vibrating through Ilara's sleeping pod, then blossomed into a soft melodic hum that filled her room. A sliver of warm artificial sunlight, filtered to mimic the perfect dawn of a long-forgotten age, eased into existence from the wall panel beside her. Ilara stirred, a small sigh escaping her lips. Her sleep pod's biomonitors detected her awakening, and the opaque lid glided silently open, revealing the familiar contours of her chamber. It was a comfortable space, designed for a child of 10 cycles, nestled high in the luminous spire tree, Tower Celeste. The walls were a cool, pearlescent grey, offset by vibrant living moss panels that purified the air and offered a hint of green in a city built of chrome and light. "Good morning, Ilara," a voice, soft as brushed velvet, purred from the ambient speakers. It was Lumi, her personal cogninode, an omnipresent AI companion whose consciousness resided in the very fabric of their home. Lumi had no physical form, but Ilara often imagined her as a shimmering motes of light, always near, always aware. Optimality readings are at 98.7%. Would you like the standard nutrient paste, or a synthesized berry compote today? Ilara stretched, her small body arching like a cat's. "Berry compote please, Lumi," she mumbled, her voice still thick with sleep. She swung her legs over the edge of the pod, landing softly on the cool floor. Her sleep tunic, woven with temperature-regulating microfibers, adjusted its texture, preparing for the day's activities. The city of Lumina hummed around them, a perpetual symphony of progress and light. From her window, a vast curved vista pane that stretched from floor to ceiling, Ilara could see the endless tapestry of other spire trees, their crystalline branches reaching for a sky that was perpetually a filtered cerulean. Grav skimmers like iridescent insects zipped along designated air currents, ferrying Lumina's inhabitants to their destinations. Below, the lower levels of the city glowed with commercial districts and entertainment hubs, a kaleidoscope of ever-shifting holographic advertisements and bustling activity. It was a city of marvels, a pinnacle of human achievement. Food was synthesized, climate was controlled, disease was a forgotten memory, and every need was anticipated by the omnipresent AIs. Yet, for all its brilliance, Lumina possessed one glaring absence: the true night sky. The city's atmospheric filters, designed to protect against lingering solar radiation and maintain the perfect climate, also served as an impenetrable veil. The millions of individual light modules that coated every surface, from skimmer chassis to building facades, created a self-sustaining aurora that banished true darkness. Ilara had seen simulations, of course, vast, star-dusted canvases projected into the communal domes, or realistic VR experiences. But Nona, her grandmother, always said it wasn't the same. Nona Dutton. The thought of her brought a gentle smile to Ilara's face. Nona was the reason Ilara felt this inexplicable pull towards the unseen heavens. After a quick, automated refresh in the sonic shower, Ilara padded into the small, minimalist dining nook. A single, perfectly portioned bowl of berry compote, its surface swirling with tiny, edible bioluminescent patterns, awaited her on the sleek, floating table. Lumi projected the morning news onto the wall panel, updates on the latest atmospheric recalibration schedule, a report on a new deep-sea energy farm, and the usual light-hearted segments about zero-G sports. Ilara barely paid attention. Her gaze was drawn, as always, to a small, worn object tucked away on a shelf near the vista pane. Her stellarium orb. It wasn't truly an orb, not in the traditional sense. It was more like a sphere of dull, unpolished obsidian, about the size of her palm, crisscrossed with faint glowing lines that pulsed with a soft inner light. Nona had given it to her on her 5th cycle day, calling it a key to forgotten wonders. Most children had sleek, interactive data slates or holographic pets. Ilara had her stellarium orb, and a faded, leather-bound book filled with hand-drawn star charts and constellations Nona had scrawled herself. "Ilara," Lumi's voice gently broke her reverie. "Your nutrient intake is below optimal. Please finish your compote." "Sorry, Lumi," Ilara mumbled, taking a spoonful. The compote was sweet and tangy, tasting of actual berries, a marvel of synthesis. After breakfast, Ilara had her daily learning module. Today it was advanced orbital mechanics, delivered by a kindly holographic tutor. She found the equations fascinating, the way planets moved in predictable, elegant dances around their suns. But what truly captured her imagination were the stories Nona told her, not of orbital mechanics, but of the G-fill of space, the silence broken only by the hum of a ship's engines, the sheer, breathtaking expanse of the cosmos, spread out before you. Nona wasn't just any grandmother. She was Nona Lyra Vance, a name whispered with reverence in certain circles. A retired astrogator, one of the last of the deep space explorers from the pre-Lumina era, before humanity had largely retreated into the self-sustaining, perfectly calibrated cities. Nona had seen the true stars, navigated by them, felt their ancient light on her face. She carried the weight of that experience in her eyes, a kind of serene melancholy that Ilara sometimes glimpsed. Ilara's learning module finished, and she had an hour of free time before her scheduled gravboarding practice. Instead of joining her friends in the communal VR lounge, she gravitated towards the stellarium orb. She picked it up, feeling the smooth, cool weight of it in her hands. The faint lines pulsed a little brighter against her skin. "Are you still trying to make sense of that antique, Ilara?" Lumi inquired, a hint of curiosity in her tone. Lumi, for all her advanced algorithms, could never fully process Nona's old-world eccentricities. It registers no known power source or data interface. Its composition is... "Nona says it doesn't need power, Lumi," Ilara said, tracing a glowing line with her thumb. "She says it needs... feeling." Lumi processed this in silence. "An interesting hypothesis. My analysis indicates no biofeedback loop with the device." Ilara smiled. Lumi was brilliant, but there were some things even the most advanced AI couldn't quantify. Like the way her heart beat a little faster when she held the orb, or the faint whispers she sometimes imagined coming from it, like distant starlight. Nona also said, "Tonight is special," Ilara said, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Did you check the atmospheric recalibration schedule?" Lumi's usual calm tone had a slight flicker of something akin to surprise. "Indeed, Ilara. There is a planned full atmospheric filter purge and recalibration cycle scheduled for 22:00 hours tonight, a rare event affecting the entire sector. The city's light grid will be temporarily dimmed to prevent interference." Ilara gasped. "The stars, Lumi. We'll see the real stars." "The probability is high, Ilara," Lumi confirmed. "Provided atmospheric particulate levels remain within acceptable parameters." It was the most wonderful news. These full filter purges were exceedingly rare, happening perhaps once every few cycles. Most citizens found them inconvenient, a temporary disruption to the city's pristine glow. But for Ilara, they were a window into Nona's world, a fleeting glimpse of the universe beyond Lumina's perfect bubble. The rest of the day crawled by. Gravboarding practice felt like a blur, her focus elsewhere. She barely tasted her recycled protein lunch. All she could think about was 22:00 hours. As the Lumina evening cycle began, the city outside her vista pane began to shift its color palette, moving from the bright cerulean of day to a deeper indigo, then to a soft warm amber as the residential districts prepared for rest. Ilara, however, was wide awake, practically vibrating with anticipation. She sat on the plush floor of her room, the stellarium orb clutched in her hands, her eyes fixed on the vista pane. Nona was in her own quarters, likely preparing in her own quiet way. Ilara knew Nona would be watching too. 10 minutes until scheduled recalibration, Lumi announced, her voice a low hum. "Please ensure all personal light devices are powered down, Ilara." Ilara didn't need to be told. Her room was already dim, the moss panels casting a gentle, natural glow. She held her breath, counting down the seconds in her head. The city began to change. First, the distant spire trees, usually ablaze with light, seemed to soften, their edges blurring. Then the grav skimmers' light trails faded, their glowing bodies becoming mere silhouettes against the darkening sky. The vibrant advertisements on the lower levels winked out, replaced by a deep, velvety black. It was as if a giant hand was slowly dimming the world's most spectacular light show. A collective hush seemed to fall over Lumina. The constant hum of the city, usually an unconscious background noise, diminished to a barely perceptible thrum. For the first time, Elara realized how loud her world usually was. Then, at precisely 22:00, the final layer of atmospheric filter began its slow, majestic retreat. It wasn't a sudden reveal, but a gradual parting of a cosmic curtain. First, the deepest indigo of the sky deepened, turning to a bruised violet, then to an inky black that seemed to absorb all light. And then, they appeared. One by one, like tiny diamonds scattered on a limitless velvet cloth, the stars began to pierce through. Not the neat, orderly constellations of her astroprojector, but a glorious, chaotic explosion of light. There were too many to count, too bright to comprehend. They sparkled, they glittered, they seemed to pulse with an ancient, silent energy. Elara gasped, a soft, reverent sound. She pressed her face against the cool vistapane, her breath fogging the glass for a moment, before the pane's self-cleaning function cleared it. The stellarium orb in her hands pulsed, its inner light mirroring the distant suns. The Milky Way, a vast, luminous river of stardust, stretched across the zenith, a breathtaking spectacle of nebulae and distant galaxies. Elara felt tears welling in her eyes, tears of pure, unadulterated wonder. It wasn't just a pretty sight, it was a profound feeling. A sense of immense scale, of cosmic belonging, of being a tiny, precious part of something so unimaginably vast and ancient. Nona's stories flooded her mind, of navigating by the twin suns of Kepler 186, of seeing the birth of a star in a distant nebula, of feeling the silence of the void. Elara felt a yearning so deep it ached in her chest. She wanted to go there, to feel that silence, to touch that starlight. "It's beautiful, Lumi," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Indeed, Elara," Lumi responded, her voice unusually subdued, as if even an AI could be touched by such a sight. "Atmospheric particulate levels are exceptionally low tonight, a truly unobstructed view." Elara could pick out familiar constellations from her book, though they looked so much more vibrant, more alive, than in any drawing. Orion, the mighty hunter, blazed brightly. Cassiopeia, the queen, sat enthroned in her W shape. And then, her gaze drifted, past the familiar, into the deeper, uncharted territories of the night sky. Suddenly her stellarium orb pulsed with a new intensity, a rapid, almost frantic rhythm. The lines on its surface flared bright, then dimmed, then flared again. Elara looked down at it, startled. "Lumi, look!" she exclaimed. "The orb is doing something." "Anomaly detected, Elara," Lumi's voice came back, sharper now. "Localized energy fluctuation emanating from the artifact, also detecting a subtle, unclassified spectral emission originating from sector Gamma 7, celestial coordinates 34.7 by 12.7 by 12. Very faint, possible atmospheric interference residual." Elara looked back up at the sky, her eyes scanning the area Lumi had indicated. Sector Gamma 7? It was just beyond Orion's belt, in a relatively sparse region of the sky. She squinted, trying to find whatever Lumi had detected. At first, she saw nothing but the countless glittering stars. But then, as her eyes adjusted, she perceived it. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer. It wasn't a star, or a meteor. It was like a ripple in the fabric of space itself, a tiny ephemeral flicker that seemed to pulse in time with her stellarium orb. It was so subtle, so brief, that if she hadn't been looking for it, she would have missed it entirely. It felt personal, as if that shimmer in the distant cosmos was reaching out, specifically to Hei. Before she could process it further, the city's lights began their slow, inevitable return. The atmospheric filters, having completed their purge, now began their descent, drawing a translucent curtain back across the heavens. The stars, which had blazed so fiercely only moments before, began to fade, one by one, swallowed by the encroaching glow of Lumina. The great river of the Milky Way dissolved into a hazy smear, then vanished. The constellations dimmed, becoming mere pinpricks, then nothing at all. In moments, the sky was once again the familiar, filtered indigo, dotted with the city's own manufactured light sources. Elara felt a pang of profound sadness, a sharp ache of loss. The wonder was gone, replaced by the familiar, comforting, yet somehow sterile, glow of her world. The stellarium orb, too, had dimmed, its inner light returning to its usual gentle pulse. "The recalibration cycle is complete," Lumi announced, her voice back to its usual placid tone. "All systems nominal, citywide light grid returning to full operational capacity." Elara didn't respond. She just sat there, staring at the now blank vista pane, a silent tear tracing a path down her cheek. The shimmer, the orb's frantic pulsing, it couldn't have been a dream. It felt too real. She stood up, still clutching the orb. The lingering image of that distant shimmer burned in her mind. It wasn't atmospheric interference. Xi-Yang knew it. A sudden thought struck her. Nona.G. If anyone would understand, it would be Nona. Elara made her way out of her room, down the short, illuminated corridor to Nona's private study. The study was a stark contrast to the rest of their modern apartment. It was a space frozen in time, filled with physical books, ancient star charts yellowed with age, and peculiar forgotten technologies that hummed with a different kind of energy. The air here smelled of old paper and something else, something metallic and faint, like distant ozone. The door, a heavy, polished wood, slid open silently at her approach. Nona was there, sitting in a worn high-backed chair, facing her own vista pane, which was now filled with the familiar city glow. But Elara knew Nona hadn't been looking at the city. Nona had been watching the stars, just like her. "Nona," Elara whispered, holding out the stellarium orb. It pulsed, and I saw something, a shimmer, in Gamma 7. Nona turned. Her eyes, usually filled with that serene melancholy, now held a spark of something Elara rarely saw, a deep, profound knowing. She looked at the orb in Elara's hand, then back at Elara. "So you saw it too," Nona said, her voice soft, almost a murmur. "I wondered if you would. It's been so long." Elara moved closer, her heart thumping. "What was it, Nona? What did the orb do?" Nona reached out, her hand, wrinkled with age, gently covering Elara's, encompassing the stellarium orb. As her hand touched it, the orb pulsed once more, a sustained, resonant glow. "This little starseed," Nona began, her gaze fixed on the orb, "is more than just an artifact. It is a key, a lens to a specific frequency, a way to see beyond the veils that humanity has drawn around itself." Elara listened, captivated. "But what was the shimmer?" Nona sighed, a long, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of millennia. "That shimmer. It's a beacon, Elara, a message." "A message? From where?" Nona looked around her study, her gaze sweeping over the dusty charts and forgotten instruments. "From a place far beyond Lumina. From a place where the stars are not just lights, but pathways. From a place your great-grandfather called Stellaris." Elara's great-grandfather. She knew he had been an explorer, lost to the void decades ago, before even Nona had become an astrogator. His name was rarely spoken. Nona stood up, moving towards a heavy, archaic data terminal tucked away in a corner. She ran her fingers over its dusty surface, then pressed a sequence of keys. The terminal hummed to life, its screen flickering with ancient, blocky text. "Your great-grandfather believed that humanity's future lay not in constructing perfect glass bubbles on Earth, but in reaching out," Nona explained, her voice gaining a quiet intensity. "He spent his life searching for something, a way to connect with the deeper cosmos, a way to understand the universe's true language." On the screen, a complex star chart materialized, unlike any Elara had ever seen. It was filled with unfamiliar constellations, intersecting lines, and strange symbols. In the center, a single star system was highlighted, glowing faintly. "This is it, Elara," Nona said, pointing a trembling finger at the glowing system. "Stellaris, a world believed to be purely mythical by most, the source of that beacon, and the destination your great-grandfather set course for, never to return." Elara felt a thrill, a shiver of fear and excitement, run down her spine. "My great-grandfather went there." Nona nodded. He followed the signal. He believed it was a call, a greeting from an intelligence older and wiser than our own. This orb, Ilara, it was his. He found it, and he left it for me, saying it was a tool for the next generation. For someone who would also feel the stars calling. For someone who would also feel the stars calling. Nona then reached into a hidden compartment beneath the terminal, pulling out a small, intricately carved wooden box. It was old, its surface smooth from countless touches. She opened it, revealing not a single item, but a collection of delicate crystalline fragments. They glittered with an inner light, like captured stardust. "These," Nona said, picking up one of the fragments, "are the pieces of a stellar compass, an ancient navigation device, far more advanced than anything we use today. Your great-grandfather spent years trying to reassemble it. He believed it was the key to unlocking the orb's full potential, and to truly understanding the message from Stellaris." Ilara looked from the glittering fragments to the orb in her hand, then to the glowing star system on the screen. The weight of the cosmos, the history of her family, and an unimaginable adventure settled upon her small shoulders. "But what am I supposed to do with them, Nona?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Nona smiled, a knowing, hopeful smile. "You, little starseed, are going to listen. You are going to learn, and perhaps, just perhaps, you are going to finish what your great-grandfather started." She looked at the orb, then back at Ilara, her eyes shining with the light of distant stars. "The beacon has awoken, and the universe, Ilara, has begun to whisper your name." Ilara swallowed, the enormity of Nona's words settling deep in her bones. The orb, pulsating softly on the table, seemed to hum with a newfound energy, its opalescent surface swirling with faint shifting colors. It wasn't just a pretty sphere anymore. It was a key, a door, a waiting ear in the silent vastness. "Listen," Ilara finally managed, her voice still thin, like a ribbon of smoke in the quiet room. "How do I listen to an orb?" Nona's smile softened, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She gestured to the orb. "Not with your ears, little starseed, not always. With your heart, with your mind. Your great-grandfather, he called it sensing the resonance. Come." Ilara approached the table, her small hand trembling slightly as Nona gently guided it towards the orb. The polished surface, cool to the touch just moments ago, now felt subtly warm, almost alive. A faint vibration, like the purr of a sleeping creature, resonated through her palm. It wasn't unpleasant, it was inviting. "Close your eyes," Nona instructed, her voice a soothing murmur. "Let go of the noise outside. Feel the hum. What do you sense?" Ilara obeyed, her eyelids fluttering shut. The world outside her eyelids dissolved into a velvety black. All that remained was the warmth in her hand, the gentle thrum against her skin, and the faint, sweet scent of ozone that now seemed to emanate from the orb. She focused, trying to clear her mind as Nona had taught her during their quiet meditation sessions. She imagined herself as a single still point in the middle of a vast, empty space. Then it began. Not a sound, not a word, but a feeling. A vastness first, like standing on the edge of an infinite ocean, gazing at a horizon that stretched forever. Then, within that vastness, a delicate tapestry of light, woven from threads of color Ilara had never seen before, colors that hummed rather than shone, that whispered rather than glowed. They shifted and flowed, forming intricate, impossible geometries, then reforming into swirling nebulae, then into something that felt like a distant, yearning song. It was overwhelming, beautiful, and utterly alien. A sense of longing, profound and ancient, washed over her, mingled with an intense curiosity. It wasn't a sad longing, but a hopeful one, like waiting for a dawn that was long overdue. Ilara gasped, her eyes flying open. She snatched her hand back, her breath coming in short, quick bursts. The orb still glowed, but now, to her eyes, its internal swirl seemed more vibrant, more purposeful. "Nona," she whispered, her voice filled with a tremor of awe. I felt it. It was like a dream, but real. Colors and feelings and a song." Nona smiled, a deep, knowing light in her eyes. "That little starseed, Is the universe beginning to speak to you? Your great-grandfather spent his life trying to understand those whispers. He believed they were not just random cosmic noise, but messages, stories, perhaps even questions. Elara looked at the orb, then back at Nona. But what did it mean? That, Nona said gently, is what you are going to learn. The orb is more than just a receiver. It's a translator, a bridge. It takes those vast alien signals and tries to render them into something a human mind can comprehend. Your great-grandfather called it the cosmic resonator. He spent decades calibrating it, refining it, trying to make sense of the fragments he received. Over the next few days, Elara's world narrowed, yet expanded infinitely. Her small, cozy room, usually a haven for her imaginative play, became a quiet observatory. The orb was her telescope, her listening post. Nona guided her patiently, never pushing, always encouraging. Approach it with an open heart, Elara, Nona would advise, watching from her worn armchair, the soft glow of the orb reflecting in her spectacles. Don't try to force understanding, just receive, let the patterns flow. Elara would sit cross-legged before the orb, her hand resting lightly on its surface. She learned to quiet her mind more quickly, to sink into that vast internal space where the whispers resided. They grew clearer with each passing session. The intricate light patterns began to coalesce into more defined shapes. She saw glimpses of impossibly tall structures, crystalline and impossibly delicate, reaching towards a sky filled with multiple suns. She felt the chill of an alien wind, the warmth of an unfamiliar star. Sometimes the whispers felt like a cascade of pure mathematics, a language of elegant equations that, while she didn't understand them logically, resonated with a profound sense of truth and order within her. Other times it was like listening to an ancient, multi-layered symphony, each note a star, each chord a galaxy. The dominant emotion remained that deep, hopeful longing, a sense of intelligent beings reaching out across unimaginable distances. Nona explained more about Elara's great-grandfather, a brilliant xenolinguist named Kalen Vance. He had discovered a unique resonant frequency deep within the fabric of spacetime, a kind of cosmic hum that seemed to carry information. He'd built the orb, piece by painstaking piece, to tap into it. He called them the Song of the Void. Nona recounted one evening, her voice hushed. He believed they were not just a random chorus, but a grand unified message from a collective of beings far older and wiser than humanity. Why us? Elara asked, tracing a swirling pattern on the orb's surface. He didn't know, Nona admitted, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. He spent his life trying to decode the purpose. He collected countless fragments, like broken pieces of a vast mosaic. He knew there was a story, a warning, or perhaps a gift hidden within them. But he couldn't put the pieces together. The signals were too complex, too lacked the final key. They lacked the final key. He lacked a final key. And you think have the key? Elara asked, her chest tightening with the weight of that possibility. Nona nodded slowly. Perhaps not a key you hold in your hand, little starseed, but a key within you. There's something about your unique resonance, your youthful mind, perhaps even your family's inherent connection to this work. He always said the orb needed a pure conduit, someone who could perceive without prejudice, without the filters of adult experience. The idea thrilled Elara and terrified her in equal measure. She was just a girl who loved stories and stargazing. Now, she was being asked to understand the language of the universe. As weeks turned into a month, Elara's connection to the orb deepened profoundly. The whispers were no longer just abstract feelings or light shows. They began to coalesce into something resembling coherent concepts, though still shrouded in metaphor and alien symbolism. She started to see recurring images, a shimmering, multifaceted jewel that seemed to represent a central intelligence or source, a winding river of starlight that flowed through dimensions, and most frequently, a distinct, symmetrical symbol, a complex knot of interwoven lines that pulsed with a gentle light. This symbol, Elara realized, wasn't just an image. It felt like a signature, a greeting. It was the seeking she'd felt earlier, now refined into a clear query. Are you there? Can you hear us? I'm there. One evening, as Elara sat before the orb, the symbol pulsed brighter than ever. Suddenly the swirling colors within the orb solidified, projecting a small shimmering hologram above its surface. It was a three-dimensional representation of the symbol, floating in the air, rotating slowly. But beyond the symbol, faint lines began to extend from it, like roots searching for soil, or branches seeking light. These lines formed a partial star chart, highlighting constellations Elara recognized from her great-grandfather's old astronomy books, and others she didn't. Nona, who had been quietly knitting, dropped her needles with a soft clatter. Kaelin always believed the messages contained coordinates, a map to their origin, or to a meeting point, she murmured, her voice edged with awe. But he could never stabilize the projections like this. Elara reached out a hesitant finger. The holographic lines were cool, almost imperceptible to the touch, yet utterly real. She felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't just abstract communication anymore. This was a direct invitation, a navigational guide. The star chart, however, was incomplete. It showed a path, but the destination remained shrouded. It was like seeing half of a treasure map. It's a puzzle, Elara breathed. They're showing us where to look, but not where to go. Nona nodded, her gaze fixed on the shimmering projection. Your great-grandfather spent years trying to fill in those blanks. He hypothesized that the orb wasn't just for receiving, but also for retransmitting. He believed that to truly understand the song, one had to sing back. But he never managed to send anything coherent. He feared his own song was too human, too discordant for their ears. Elara looked at the orb, then at the holographic map. Transmit Aintal. The thought was daunting. What could she, a little girl, possibly send back to beings who spoke in star songs and cosmic mathematics? How do I sing back? Elara asked, a knot of nervousness tightening in her stomach. Nona moved closer, her eyes serious. Kaelin believed it wasn't about words, or even complex signals. It was about intention, emotion, a pure resonance of being. He always said, the universe speaks in frequencies, but it understands in connection. She placed a hand on Elara's shoulder. Try to send them what you feel, your wonder, your curiosity, your desire to connect. Elara took a deep breath. She placed both hands back on the orb, closing her eyes. She focused on the warmth, the hum, and the distant longing she felt from the whispers. But this time, instead of just receiving, she tried to project. She imagined her own feelings, her own sense of wonder at the stars, her hope for understanding, radiating outwards, flowing into the orb, then out into the vastness of space. She pictured the symbol, the star chart, and focused on a single clear thought. We are here. We hear you. Then, when you stare, we. For a moment, nothing happened. The orb continued its soft hum. Elara felt a pang of disappointment. Maybe Nona was right. Maybe her song was too human. Then the orb began to vibrate with an intensity that made the table tremble. The soft glow inside swelled into a blinding golden light that pulsed outwards, filling the room. The holographic star chart above the orb flared, the incomplete lines suddenly stretching further, drawing new constellations, new pathways, until a clear undeniable destination solidified. It wasn't a single point, but a network, a nexus of points around a specific, incredibly distant star system. And from the orb, not a whisper, but a clear resonant it tone chimed through the room. It was a perfect crystalline sound, like 1,000 bells ringing in unison, yet utterly gentle. It vibrated not just in the air, but in Elara's very bones, in her heart. And with the tone came a new wave of understanding, clearer than anything she had experienced before. It was a cascade of information, not in images, but in pure, distilled knowledge. We have heard your song, little starseed. The bridge is incomplete. The great resonator requires a nexus. Modern. The message wasn't in words, but Elara understood it with absolute clarity. The orb, her great-grandfather's invention, was not merely a receiver or a transmitter. It was an e-activator ring. It needed to be taken to a specific point, a nexus in space, to complete its purpose, to fully resonate and connect with the distant senders. The star chart was a map not to Earth, but to where the orb needed to be. The golden light subsided, leaving the orb glowing with a soft, steady luminescence. The projected star chart remained, but now with a clear shimmering destination highlighted, a faint, almost imperceptible arrow pointing the way. Elara opened her eyes, breathless. Nona was staring at the orb, her face a mixture of wonder and profound concern. "A nexus," Nona whispered, her voice rough with emotion. He spoke of a nexus, a focal point in the cosmic web. He believed the orb was designed to amplify the connection, not just translate it, but he never found the location. Elara looked at the star chart, then at Nona. "They want us to take it there, Nona. The orb. They need us to finish the bridge." Nona slowly turned to Elara, her gaze piercing. "That system, it's far, Elara. Beyond charted space, even for our fastest sublight vessels. It would take decades, maybe centuries, to reach it with conventional means." Kaelin had theories about faster-than-light travel, about harnessing the very resonance the orb detects, but they were just theories. The implications hit Elara like a sudden cold wave. This wasn't just about listening in her room anymore. This was about a journey. An impossible journey. But the orb pulsed, steady and inviting, and the star chart shone with the promise of adventure. Elara looked at the destination, a cluster of stars that glimmered with an almost magical light. She felt a pull, a calling deeper than any fear. The universe had whispered her name. Now, it was showing her the path. And the whispers were no longer just distant echoes. They were a clear, urgent invitation. Elara reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and touched the orb. It was warm, humming with a low, resonant frequency that vibrated through her fingertips and up her arm. The light from the star chart intensified, wrapping around her, a gentle embrace of shimmering sapphire and emerald. The edges of her room began to blur, not fading, but softening, dissolving into a tapestry of swirling starlight. The walls, the ceiling, her bed, they didn't disappear. They simply became transparent, revealing the boundless cosmos beyond. She didn't move, yet she felt a profound shift. The floor beneath her feet transformed into a smooth, cool surface that hummed with quiet power. The air around her grew crisp, clean, carrying the faint, sweet scent of ozone and distant stardust. She was no longer in her bedroom, yet she hadn't morphed it either. It was as if her room had expanded, shed its earthly constraints and unfurled into a command center, a viewport, a vessel of unimaginable grace. Before her, where the star chart had been, a panoramic view opened up. Earth, a swirling marble of blue and white, receded with breathtaking speed. It wasn't a jarring jolt, but a seamless, gentle acceleration, like being carried on a cosmic tide. Stars, once pinpricks, grew into dazzling diamonds, then blurred into streaks of light as the vessel, a vessel, slipped through the fabric of space. A soft melodic voice resonated through the space, not from a speaker, but seemingly from the very air itself, a gentle presence. "Welcome, Elara. We are initiated. Destination. The luminous veil." Elara gasped, not in fear, but in sheer awe. Her heart beat a rhythm of wonder against her ribs. She looked around. The space was sleek, minimalist, bathed in soft, responsive light. Consoles glowed with gentle indicators, not buttons or screens, but shimmering interfaces that seemed to respond to her thoughts, to the very presence of her gaze. There were no harsh angles, only organic curves, as if the ship had been grown, not built. It felt alive. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast quiet of the ship. "I am Lumen," the voice replied, its tone warm and reassuring. "I am the vessel, and your companion on this journey. The orb which you hold is our guide and our connection. It has chosen you, Elara, and I am here to facilitate its purpose." Elara looked down at the orb in her hand. It was no longer just a curious artifact. It was a living beacon, pulsing with a soft internal luminescence that mirrored the distant stars. She felt a connection to it, a subtle hum of shared intention. The fear that had once flickered at the edges of her courage was now completely eclipsed by an overwhelming sense of destiny. This wasn't just a dream. This was real. And she was utterly, unbelievably ready. The panoramic view before her shifted. Earth was now a distant, shimmering jewel, its familiar continents just discernible. Then, with another silent, elegant surge, the stars around them elongated, stretching into brilliant, ethereal ribbons of light. The vessel wasn't moving through space anymore. It felt like it was moving with space, folding it around them, painting new dimensions into existence. "We are entering the first phase of transit," Lumen explained, its voice a soothing balm against the vastness. "A quantum slipstream will carry us beyond conventional speeds. Observe, Elara. The universe reveals itself differently through these currents." The view outside became a breathtaking kaleidoscope. It wasn't the stark, star-streaked tunnel of light she'd seen in stories. Instead, it was a living, breathing ocean of color and energy. Swirling nebulae of iridescent gas painted the void in shades of amethyst, emerald, and gold. Galaxies, once distant smudges, now seemed to ripple and flow like cosmic currents, their spiral arms unfurling in slow-motion dances. She saw not just light, but the very fabric of space-time stretching and contracting, a shimmering, multi-dimensional ballet of energy she couldn't have even imagined. Elara pressed her hand against the smooth, transparent surface of the viewport, feeling the subtle vibrations of the ship. It was like looking into the soul of the universe, a vibrant, interconnected web of existence. She saw patterns within patterns, echoes of mathematical beauty that resonated deep within her. It was overwhelming, yet perfectly serene. "Are we traveling faster than light?" she asked, her voice hushed. "Exponentially so, Elara," Lumen confirmed. "The slipstream allows us to navigate the folds of space-time, bypassing the linear constraints of speed. Time itself behaves differently here. For you, moments will pass. For those you left behind, many hours, perhaps days, will unfold." A pang of human emotion, sharp and sudden, pierced through the wonder. Her parents. Would they worry? Would they even notice her absence, or would this journey unfold in a blink of an eye for them, a forgotten dream for her? Lumen, sensing her shift in mood, offered a gentle reassurance. "The orb maintains a subtle anchor, Elara. Your departure will manifest as a deeply peaceful sleep, a journey within dreams. Your return will be equally gentle. For them, your absence will be a brief, pleasant slumber, no more." The words eased her heart. She wasn't abandoning them. She was merely stepping outside of their shared timeline for a little while. This made the journey feel less like an escape, and more like a profound, personal quest. She could embrace the wonder, without the heavy weight of guilt. Hours blurred into a sensation of timelessness. Elara explored her new vessel. It was more than just a ship. It was a sanctuary. There was a small, comfortable chamber that served as her living quarters, complete with a bed that contoured perfectly to her form, a refresher unit that synthesized food and drink from pure energy, and a window that could project any view from the ship's exterior, or even historical cosmic events. Lumen was an ever-present, helpful guide, answering her unspoken questions, anticipating her needs. One time she felt a slight tremor, a ripple through the slipstream. "What was that?" she asked, a flicker of concern. "A minor perturbation," Lumen replied calmly. "A rogue graviton wave from a collapsing star system ahead. We adjusted course effortlessly, nothing to be concerned about." Elara watched as the cosmic tapestry outside rippled, the colors deepening for a moment before returning to their serene flow. The sheer power and sophistication of the vessel, of Lumen, was astounding. It wasn't just fast, it was intelligent, adaptive, a true companion. She spent what felt like an age simply watching, absorbing the majesty of the cosmos. She saw binary star systems locked in an eternal waltz, nebulae giving birth to new stars, and the faint shimmering trails of what Lumen described as cosmic dust lanes, remnants of ancient stellar explosions. Each sight filled her with a profound sense of connection, a feeling that she was part of something infinitely larger and more beautiful than she had ever known. The orb in her hand continued its steady pulse, a warm, reassuring presence. Sometimes it would glow brighter, and Elara would feel a surge of pure, unadulterated joy, a thrill of anticipation. It was guiding her, not just physically through space, but emotionally, connecting her to the very essence of the journey. After an indeterminate period, Lumen's voice broke through the quiet contemplation. Elara, we are nearing our destination coordinates, the luminous veil. Prepare for exit from the quantum slipstream. A new light began to appear on the horizon of the chromatic ocean, not the diffuse glow of a distant galaxy, but a concentrated brilliance unlike anything she had seen before. It shimmered with an internal fire, radiating hues of silver, pearl, and a deep, ethereal violet. It looked less like a star cluster, and more like a living jewel, suspended in the velvet blackness. The sensation of deceleration was as gentle as the acceleration had been. The cosmic currents outside began to slow, the swirling colors resolving back into distinct stars and nebulae. The vessel glided smoothly, coming to a near standstill at the edge of this extraordinary phenomenon. Elara stared, breathless. The luminous veil was not merely bright, it was incandescent. Thousands upon thousands of stars, each one a jewel, pulsed with a synchronized rhythm, creating a mesmerizing dance of light. But these weren't ordinary stars. Some glowed with soft pearlescent light, others pulsed with a deep, resonant crimson, still others shone with an almost liquid azure. Interspersed among them were vast, translucent nebulae that shimmered with internal lights, like colossal, breathing organisms made of stardust. "This is it," Lumen whispered, a hint of reverence in its synthetic voice. "The destination the orb has sought. It is known to ancient starfarers as the Weave of Athel, a place where the fabric of reality is exceptionally thin, and the very essence of creation can be perceived." Elara felt the orb in her hand thrum with an unprecedented intensity. It was vibrating, almost singing, in harmony with the celestial symphony before them. A wave of pure energy washed over her, not harmful, but invigorating, awakening senses she didn't know she possessed. She could almost encastan the light, hearing the silent song of the stars. The vessel began to move again, slowly, deliberately, gliding into the heart of the luminous veil. The light intensified, wrapping around them like a warm, living blanket. She saw planets, not barren rocks, but worlds glowing with their own internal light, some with atmospheres that swirled with liquid colors, others encased in crystalline shells that refracted the starlight into a million rainbows. "Observe the celestial bodies within the veil," Elara, Lumen instructed. "Many are not naturally formed, they are artifacts, creations of an intelligence beyond our current understanding. This cluster is a sanctuary, a cosmic library, a garden." As they drew closer, Elara could distinguish intricate structures woven into the very nebulae. Filaments of light formed ethereal pathways, connecting luminous spheres. Vast, crystalline spires pierced the glowing gas clouds, reflecting and amplifying the starlight in patterns too complex to be accidental. It was a masterpiece of cosmic engineering, blended seamlessly with natural beauty. Then, she saw it. Suspended in the heart of a particularly vibrant, emerald-green nebula, was a structure that defied all expectations. It wasn't a planet, nor a star, but a colossal, perfectly spherical object made of what looked like pure solidified light. It pulsed with a gentle internal rhythm, radiating concentric rings of soft multicolored energy that spread through the nebula like ripples in a pond. Around it, smaller, organic-looking vessels, like luminous seeds, drifted in slow, graceful orbits. The heart of the veil, Lumen identified. It is the source of the unique energies within this cluster, and where our journey truly begins. Elara felt an undeniable pull towards it, a magnetic attraction that resonated with the orb in her hand. It was as if this spherical light structure was calling to her specifically. Her breath hitched in her throat. This was more profound than she could have ever imagined. The vessel approached the colossal sphere, slowing to a stately crawl. As they drew nearer, she could see that its surface wasn't entirely smooth. Intricate patterns, like living circuitry, pulsed just beneath the translucent skin. There were openings too, vast archways of solidified light that beckoned like doorways to another dimension. "Prepare for docking," Lumen announced. "The heart welcomes us." The vessel glided through one of these archways, and Elara felt a gentle shift, a subtle change in the air pressure, a new, sweet scent like blooming flowers and fresh rain. They were inside. The interior of the heart was even more astonishing than its exterior. It was an immense, hollow sphere, a boundless cavern filled with soft, living light. Instead of a hard, metallic surface, the walls were organic, shimmering with bioluminescence, like the inside of a colossal, living pearl. Pathways of luminous energy snaked across the floor and up the curved walls, leading to various chambers and platforms that floated in the vast space. And it was filled with life. Not solid biological life as she knew it, but beings of pure light, shimmering motes of energy that drifted gracefully, communicating through silent pulses of color. They were ethereal, beautiful, and seemed utterly peaceful. They paid the arriving vessel no mind, continuing their silent dances. "These are the Lumina," Lumen explained, its voice hushed. "They are the guardians of the veil, beings of pure consciousness and energy. They have no physical form as we understand it, yet they are the architects and caretakers of this cosmic garden." Elara watched them, captivated. They were like living stars, miniature nebulae drifting through the immense space. The orb in her hand glowed intensely now, almost painful in its brilliance, and she realized it was resonating with the Lumina, communicating with them. A pathway of light solidified before the vessel, leading to a central, elevated platform that pulsed with a particularly strong energy signature. "This is the nexus," Lumen indicated. "The primary interface. The orb directs us there." The vessel gently settled onto the platform. The archway behind them sealed with a soft hum. Elara felt a sense of finality, of arrival. This was it. The impossible journey had brought her to a place beyond imagination. She stepped out of the vessel, onto the luminous platform. The air was warm, filled with the gentle hum of energy, and the silent, shimmering presence of the Lumina. They drifted closer, not in a threatening way, but with a quiet curiosity, their light mingling with the orbs. The platform beneath her feet began to glow brighter, and intricate patterns of light spread across its surface, reaching out like welcoming tendrils. At the center of the platform, a column of pure, concentrated light rose, pulsating with a spectrum of colors. It was clearly the focal point, the heart of the heart. The orb in her hand began to lift, slowly, gently, floating upwards towards the column of light. Elara watched, mesmerized. As the orb connected with the column, the entire sphere of the heart seemed to resonate. The Lumina pulsed brighter, their movements becoming more intricate, a cosmic dance of welcome. Images began to form within the column of light, swirling patterns that resolved into scenes. She saw glimpses of ancient civilizations, not human, but diverse, beautiful, interconnected. She saw knowledge, vast libraries of information flowing like rivers of light. She saw a tapestry of the universe, not just stars and galaxies, but the unseen forces, the subtle energies that bound everything together. The orb was a key, and this column was unlocking something profound. It wasn't just showing her past events. It was conveying understanding, emotion, a sense of shared purpose. She felt a connection to all of it, a deep, knowing resonance that settled into her very core. She understood, without words, that the luminous veil was not just a destination, but a legacy. A place for learning, for growth, for preserving the beauty and knowledge of the cosmos. And the orb, she realized, was not just a guide, but an invitation. An invitation to be a part of this legacy. As the images swirled, one vision coalesced, clearer than the others. It was a projection of herself, but older, wiser, surrounded by the Lumina, not as an observer, but as a participant. She was interacting with the column of light, not just receiving, but giving. She was a conduit, a bridge, a part of the grand design. The vision faded, leaving behind an afterglow of profound peace and an undeniable sense of purpose. The orb, now gently resting back in her hand, pulsed with a calm, steady light, no longer urging, but affirming. Lumen's voice, soft and respectful, broke the silence. "You have been recognized, Ilara. The veil has accepted you. The orb has revealed your role." Ilara looked around at the shimmering lumina, at the vast living architecture of the heart. She looked at the orb, now a part of her, a connection to everything. The whispers were gone, replaced by a clear, resounding truth. She was here for a reason. And the universe, in all its impossible wonder, was ready to share its deepest secrets with her. She had journeyed across the cosmos, and now, she was finally home. But this home was not a place of rest. It was a place of awakening, a threshold to a greater adventure yet to unfold. What would she learn? What would she become? The questions hung in the luminous air, promising endless possibilities. The lumina pulsed, their collective light seeming to embrace her. She felt an echo of their thoughts, a gentle welcoming hum of pure data and shared wisdom. It was like being immersed in a warm, knowing ocean of consciousness. She understood intuitively that they were inviting her to join them, to begin her apprenticeship within this cosmic sanctuary. Days, or perhaps weeks, blurred into a timeless flow within the heart. Ilara learned to communicate with the lumina, not through spoken words, but through intent and emotion, guided by the orb's subtle translations. They shared with her the histories of myriad star systems, the rise and fall of civilizations, the intricate dance of cosmic forces. She learned of the delicate balance that maintained the luminous veil, how its unique energies sustained the lumina and protected the vast archive of knowledge it contained. The column of light at the nexus became her classroom. When she placed her hand on it, the orb resonated, and she would be enveloped in a cascade of information. She studied astrogation paths that charted routes through nebulous dark matter, bioluminescent flora of exoplanets, and the complex harmonic frequencies that governed the creation of new stars. Each lesson was a breathtaking journey, not just intellectual, but deeply sensory. She could feel the chill of an ice giant's atmosphere, taste the metallic tang of a volcanic moon, or hear the silent symphony of a forming galaxy. Lumen was a constant, patient tutor, explaining concepts that were too complex for direct lumina transmission, always offering insight into the practical applications of the knowledge Ilara was acquiring. The lumina perceive in patterns, Ilara, Lumen would explain. They experience information as a whole. My purpose is to help you translate these patterns into discrete, actionable understanding, grounded in your human frame of reference. One day, while meditating at the nexus, a new vision unfolded within the column of light. It was a shimmering, intricate map, not of stars, but of connections. Lines of energy pulsed between distant points in the cosmos, some bright and strong, others faint and flickering. At the center of this map, the luminous veil glowed like a magnificent node. "This is the celestial network," Lumen's voice resonated, "a universal web of consciousness, maintained by beings across the galaxies. The luminous veil is a primary hub, a repository of its most vital information." Ilara watched as a particularly faint line on the map began to flicker, erratically, then dim. It pointed towards a distant, unnamed cluster of stars far beyond the veil. A sense of unease settled over her. "What is happening there?" she asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "A disruption," Lumen replied, its tone more serious than usual. "A system losing its connection to the network. It indicates a decline, a weakening of the vital energies that sustain life and knowledge in that region. Such events are rare, and always a cause for concern." The lumina around her pulsed with a collective sorrow, their light dimming slightly in response to the flickering line on the map. Ilara felt their empathy, their deep understanding of loss and disconnection. "Can it be fixed?" she whispered, her gaze fixed on the fading light. "The lumina possess the knowledge," Lumen stated, "but their nature is observational, archival." The orb in her hand began to glow, not with its usual calm pulse, but with a focused, insistent light, mirroring the distress on the celestial network map. It wasn't just showing her the problem, it was edge-pointing her towards a solution. Ilara looked from the fading light on the map to the orb in her hand, and then to the silent, expectant lumina. She understood. This was not just a library, but a call to action. Her journey to the luminous veil was not just about learning, it was about preparing. Preparing for something greater, something that required her unique human perspective, her capacity for direct action and emotional connection. The vision of her older, wiser self returned, standing not just among the lumina, but reaching out, connecting, repairing. She was not merely a conduit for knowledge, but an agent of change, a restorer of balance. A new determination solidified within her. The fear was long gone, replaced by a quiet strength. "Lumen," she said, her voice clear and steady, "show me the way to that flickering light. Show me what I need to do." The lumina pulsed with renewed brilliance, their light embracing her once more, a silent cheer for her resolve. The orb thrummed with purpose, its inner light shining like a guiding star. The universe had whispered her name, shown her the path, and now, it was entrusting her with a task. Elara knew her impossible journey was far from over. It had just truly begun. She was ready to step beyond the veil, to carry its light into the shadowed corners of the cosmos, and to mend the broken threads of the celestial network. The mysteries of the luminous veil had unlocked her potential, and now, the vast unknown awaited her. Elara didn't travel in the traditional sense. She became the journey. The luminous veil didn't just infuse her, it dissolved the boundaries of her being. Her physical form, a mere whisper of matter, remained anchored at the heart of the veil, but her consciousness, now a radiant spark of pure intent, expanded. She became a wave of light, a ripple of thought, a current of cosmic energy, flowing out into the vast, silent sea of stars. The universe unfolded before her, not as a distant spectacle, but as an intimate tapestry of light and shadow, warmth and cold, vibrant life and desolate stillness. She felt the pulse of distant quasars, the slow breath of gas giants, the silent dance of asteroid fields. And then, she felt the broken threads. Her first destination was a sector, known only as the Whispering Wastes. Here, stars flickered with a hesitant glow, planets drifted like forgotten ghosts, and the usual vibrant hum of the celestial network was replaced by a faint, sorrowful sigh. Life existed, but it was fragile, isolated, clinging to existence in pockets of despair. She saw beings on desolate worlds, their faces etched with a profound loneliness, their antennae drooping, their energy fields dimmed. They were cut off, unable to share their knowledge, their joys, their sorrows. The threads weren't merely broken, they were frayed, tangled, starved of connection. Elara extended her awareness, a tendril of the veil's light. It wasn't a beam, but a feeling, a resonance. She sought out the nearest point of despair, a small crystalline creature on a barren moon, its bioluminescent scales barely glowing. Its thoughts were simple, alone, cold, forgotten. Tenderly, innocent. Gently, Elara infused the creature with a warmth that wasn't heat, but pure connection. She didn't speak words, but transmitted a sense of belonging, an echo of the grand cosmic song. The creature's scales began to shimmer, its internal light rekindling. It looked up, not seeing her, but feeling the presence, the touch of something vast and kind. Its loneliness receded, replaced by a nascent wonder. As its own light grew, it began to send out tiny, hopeful pulses, signals that, for the first time in eons, were received by another lone creature on a distant shard of rock. A tiny, fragile thread had been rewoven. This was her task. Not to force connection, but to remind, to rekindle, to empower the universe to mend itself. She journeyed deeper into the shadows. Some breaks were subtle, like a fading memory. Others were gaping wounds, torn by ancient cataclysms or forgotten wars. She encountered sectors where entire nebulae had gone silent, where civilizations had retreated into themselves, their fear of the unknown severing their links to the greater cosmos. There were moments of profound weariness. The sheer scale of the task was overwhelming. She was one spark against an ocean of darkness. Doubt, a cold, unfamiliar tendril, tried to creep into her radiant core. Could she truly do this? Was she enough? But then, she would remember the luminous veil, its unwavering purpose, its trust in her. She would remember the little crystalline creature, its renewed glow. And she would draw strength from the deepest wellspring of her being, the human heart that still beat within her anchored self, now amplified by cosmic power. Her emotions, once her anchors, now became her fuel. One of the most challenging areas was the silent zone, where a strange anti-light energy seemed to actively suppress the network. Here, the threads weren't just broken, they were actively unraveling. She discovered the source, not malicious beings, but entities known as the Void Weavers, ancient, ethereal creatures who believed that ultimate peace lay in absolute isolation, in the cessation of all connection. They were not evil, but misguided, their philosophy a cosmic black hole, pulling in all resonance. Elara knew force was not the answer. She couldn't fight darkness with light if the darkness believed it was light itself. Instead, she extended her own presence, not as an opposing force, but as an offering. She projected memories of connection, echoes of laughter across star systems, the shared warmth of communal discovery, the quiet comfort of mutual understanding. She showed them, not told them, the beauty of the tapestry they were unweaving. It was a slow, arduous process. The Void Weavers initially recoiled, their forms flickering like disturbed shadows. But Elara persisted, her light gentle yet unyielding, a constant loving hum against their philosophy of silence. She didn't seek to destroy their belief, but to expand in it, to show them that true peace wasn't isolation, but harmony within the grand symphony. Slowly, infinitesimally, the Void Weavers began to shift. Their anti-light energies softened, becoming less corrosive, more absorbent. They began to feel the echoes Elara shared, and for the first time in millennia, they listened. As Elara continued her work, she noticed a profound shift. The act of mending wasn't just repairing what was broken, it was strengthening what remained. Each reconnected thread vibrated with a stronger, clearer frequency, carrying the echoes of her light further, allowing the universe to begin mending itself. She wasn't just a repairer, she was a catalyst. The veil's light wasn't just in her, it was her, flowing outwards, inspiring, nurturing, awakening. She saw stars that had dimmed begin to glow with renewed vigor, planets long thought barren sprout with nascent life. Civilizations that had walled themselves off slowly opened their metaphorical gates, their communications channels buzzing with tentative, hopeful messages. The faint, sorrowful sigh of the whispering wastes had transformed into a gentle, harmonious hum. The silent zone, while still quiet, now resonated with a deep, peaceful understanding, the Void Weavers having found their place as guardians of profound, silent wisdom within the greater network, no longer actively severing threads but listening to the music of connection. After what felt like eons, yet perhaps only moments within the veil's timeless embrace, Elara felt a profound sense of completion. The celestial network thrummed with renewed life, its threads interwoven with her own essence. She hadn't fixed every single flaw, for the universe was ever-changing, ever-evolving, always creating new connections and new challenges. But she had healed the core breaks, re-established the fundamental flow. Her light, once a focused spark, had expanded to encompass vast swathes of the cosmos. She was no longer just Elara, the girl from a distant world. She was a living, breathing part of the celestial network itself, a conduit of the luminous veil, a guardian of connection. Slowly, gently, her expanded consciousness began to draw back, returning to the anchor point within the luminous veil. Her physical form, which had seemed to pulse faintly in her absence, now solidified, her eyes fluttering opened. She was back. But she was utterly transformed. Her skin seemed to glow with a soft inner luminescence. Her eyes held the depth of countless galaxies. She looked around the heart of the luminous veil, no longer seeing it as a destination, but as a home. She understood now that her journey wasn't about returning to her old life, but about embracing her new one. She was the bridge, the whisperer of forgotten songs, the mender of cosmic tears. The veil had entrusted her with a task, and she had fulfilled it, not by conquering, but by connecting, not by imposing, but by inspiring. Elara closed her eyes, feeling the gentle thrum of the reconnected celestial network echoing within her very being. The universe was whole again, not perfect, but harmonized. And she, Alara, the girl who dared to dream beyond the stars, was now forever a part of its endless beautiful song. She was ready, not for another impossible journey, but for an infinite, purposeful existence, forever interwoven with the light she had carried into the shadowed corners of the cosmos. Her heart, once filled with longing, now overflowed with a quiet, boundless peace. The stars twinkled outside the veil, each one a tiny reflection of the light she now carried within. And as Alara drifted into a deep, contented rest, she knew her story had just truly begun, evolving with every beat of the universe's heart.